in the gut, thinking that I won't react. You whisper in my name, thinking I won't be the same. Turn fiction into fact. See what you didn't know, bruises that I'll never show, slipping on your every jab. So tighten up your fist, step into the ring with this. I hope your mama's got your back. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, blowing the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. Just 'cause I took a break, you're making a huge mistake, thinking you can take the throne. Look at you trembling, step into the lion's den. Bet you wish you stayed at home. Begging for mercy underneath your breath when I ain't even sweating yet. My legend's written in the stone, yeah. You're crying age, you're in defeat is now your only friend. Even your mama's gotta know. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth.
This is Ben. Ben Gillette, Ben and Teller. Big guy does magic. Smaller guy next to me, he does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. Anyway, I wanted to welcome you to In Time with Nick. And, oh, what's that, Teller? What's that, Teller, what's that? Oh, yeah, yeah, Teller wanted to say welcome to In Time too, but his mic is off, like Nick. Love you all. Peace.
Hello, hello, and thank you all for joining us. That would be funny if it wasn't so true. Welcome to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter. 𝐒𝐨𝐮𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 could not be with us today. He'll probably be with us tonight. Tonight we're going to have on Nate the lawyer. I think it's going to be a great discussion. He is going to be talking, first of all, about the constitutionality of federally mandated mask requirements and or federally mandated vaccine requirements. There are, in fact, some precedents for it, but very narrow, and there's some ways to object to it as well. So he's going to be covering that with us, and he's also going to be covering a number of the cases going before the Supreme Court. There's going to be an abortion challenge, which for people who are pro-choice, it's not looking great with the Supreme Court with the current makeup as to what's going to happen. We'll be discussing that with Nate as well. And then we're also going to, I think, discuss the women's soccer team and the pay inequity. He's done a lot of videos on that, and I found those videos very informative, and he really knows what he's talking about. He's done a tremendous amount of research. It's been too long since we've had him on anyway. I love having Nate on. Looking forward to that. So that's Nate tonight. Tomorrow night, as usual, after dark, 10 p.m., call-in show, open stream. You guys can come in, hang with us. It should be a lot of fun. I think both Joe and 𝐒𝐨𝐮 are going to be there. We're also going to have tomorrow, I think early afternoon, we're going to be discussing the new Chinese rocket, the ultrasonic, I keep saying ultrasonic, it is hypersonic rocket. It's that we can tell here, it's a bit of a game changer. It's the first truly offensive delivery weapon that has been developed in quite some time, ever since the ballistic missile ban. The reason we don't develop first strike weapons is because the very existence of these weapons increases the chances that a nuclear weapon is going to go off. Now, China, we've been actually developing one of these as well. We were set to, the goal was to complete it by October 2022. we'll see where it goes, and we'll have a talk about how our nuclear deterrent works in this kind of instance with a missile like this, and where we're going to go from here. So that's going to be an interesting discussion tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night after dark. I hope you guys will join us. It should be a lot of fun. So in the meantime, most of you, I think, know who MythVision is. We've got his links in the description. And one of the things I had found out that was interesting was that he often talks openly about his struggles with addiction. And addiction is something that all of us have seen, and some of us have gone through it. Some of us have seen loved ones go through it, and it affects everybody. And I think there's a lot to unpack and discuss there. I've put in the bottom of the video a link to Craig Ferguson, who is a late night talk show host. Most of us have seen him around. He's a comedian. But he, one day, Britney Spears had gotten into, she'd shaved her head and been doing all sorts of crazy things. And it was the same weekend that he was 15 years sober. And he had a script, a monologue for what he was going to do that night, and it was heavy with Britney Spears jokes, and he realized he couldn't make fun of somebody who was suffering this much, and he went completely off script and did about a 10 or 15 minute monologue. We've included it discussing his own issues with alcoholism. My suspicion is we're going to reference that several times throughout the show. I think it's a brilliant and poignant monologue, and he even got an Emmy for it, if I recall, just going off script and doing it. So that is linked in the description. All of MythVision's videos are also, or not videos, his channel and his information is all linked in the description. So without further ado, let's bring out MythVision here, and let's see. There we are, and for whatever reason, either your camera is off, but we should have you out here now. So Derek, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Not much. And yeah, your camera was on earlier, but it appears to be off. It's probably a problem on my end. So let me just quickly take a look at it. At least people should be able to hear you. So welcome to In Time. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, Nicholas. Yeah, this first time here.
Well, hopefully there'll be many more. So, and I'm still struggling with this camera here. So let me just do one more thing, and I just want to figure out. It really doesn't want to come on for you, and there we go. All right. So, all right. Well, thank you. Well, you and I had been talking about briefly about Ocean, and it was just funny. Nowadays, people use StreamYards a lot, and so you can hide people and put them on very easily. But that's still a reasonably new thing. And Ocean had been on a podcast that had been having a lot of drama, and they couldn't hide him, so he was just on right from the beginning. And they're talking the drama, and he's like, "Can we please talk philosophy? Can we please talk philosophy? Can we please?" So we're like, "We will never do that to a guest." So we're just like, "Okay, we have the ability to hide them." So it's we have the shield, we can put it down and hide them. It's also really convenient when a guest gets like all, when it turns out that they really know so much more than I do, and I get like humiliated by it. It's just like, "Oh, sorry, I put the thing down. Nobody can see or hear you now," and it works great.
Right.
So thank you for joining us. So now I think it's hard for people who have struggled with alcoholism. Actually, I think it's very hard. There was one thing that Craig Ferguson did say that I thought was really interesting. He said, you can embarrass someone to death. And I think a lot of people who struggle with addiction, one of the hardest parts is admitting they have a problem. If for no other reason, then it seems like you're the only one who does this. So if you have a problem with alcohol, and you realize that, okay, you're at a dinner party, and everyone else has half-empty glasses, and they don't seem to be, you're wasting perfectly good alcohol. Now you just downed a couple glasses, and you're just trying to figure out if you can sneak those glasses or whatever it is you're trying to do, and then you realize you're the only one doing this. Nobody else, at least that you're aware of, is doing this. And you're like, it feels like, okay, a 12-year-old has more self-restraint when it comes to these things than you do. And it's humiliating to admit that. So I guess I wanted to dovetail into two questions here. But the first is, You know, how is it now that you feel comfortable talking about these issues, first of all, and why do you do it? And then second of all, how do you deal with someone coming to terms with the embarrassment from that kind of struggle?
I guess the first question that you're asking me is, how did I come to terms with being open and public about this? Is that what you're asking me?
That's exactly
okay.
right.
So I think I've always been a little bit. My dad used to tell me growing up, he's like, son, you don't have to tell everyone everything. I tell him me and my wife are arguing, or I did something wrong, or like, let me just use a horrible analogy just to give people an example. Someone you cheat on your wife or something, right? You go to tell her, like, I made this mistake. My father's the kind of guy who's like, some things you just need to keep between you and God, right? This is what he would say back in the day. Like, you don't need to tell her, you're just going to offend her. There's some truth to that, but I was always very transparent, and I just kind of would say, and I honestly believe some psychological reasoning behind being honest, transparent, has helped me. I really think being honest and open has helped me be a vulnerable human being. It is also, for people who are going to be rude or harsh and try to attack me, it can be easier to, I guess, offend someone, right? That's like not used to that. But for me, I've got pretty thick skin. I'm used to people talking crap. Well, you deserve to die, or what? It's just a choice. Why did you do these things? I mean, I have a whole nother channel, not even MythVision, that has 25,000 subscribers, and it's purely about my addiction. So I didn't know if you knew that coming into this show, but I have a whole nother. Yeah,
I had no idea.
About that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I literally was 5 days off heroin, the last time I ever had any issues with addiction. And I was watching YouTube, as I still do today at night. I'll watch YouTube videos and stuff like that, like a TV. And I came across this guy who was withdrawing. And he was sitting there smoking some weed, hanging out, talking about how much pain he went through and this and that. Then 30 days later, I mean, I'm going through his videos. He was just a way of speaking, and he was glowing. I mean, like actually shining. His eyes, no dark sacs, nothing. And he says, I'm 30 days off heroin, and I feel great. I've been going to the gym, this, that. And I thought, this guy does not even look like the same human. It inspired me. It made me go, I can do this. If he can do it, I can do it. So I opened my phone 5 days, all alone at 3, 4 in the morning, pitch black, nobody's up, nobody's around. I'm completely alone and depressed. And I opened my phone up, smoking a cigarette on my couch with a banana peel next to me, ready to put it out on the banana peel, just sitting there talking about everything. I just opened up. My father's an alcoholic. I grew up with alcohol and that kind of problem. I didn't want to be like my dad, so I decided I'd, find other ways to escape. I tried not to be like him. I ended up just like him in many ways, even when I didn't want to. But then it became pills, and for many years, pills turned into stronger pills, Percocet and Vicodin into oxymorphone, which is Opanas, and I'm sniffing these almost heroin prescriptions and fentanyl patches back when they were giving them. I was chewing them and, all sorts of crazy stuff, to trying heroin. And then, of course, heroin and fentanyl were both out there, and they were cheaper at first for me to get the high I was wanting. Mm-hmm. So I tried it one day, just sniffed a little bit, and I was like, whoa, they lied to me. This was the first thought. The whole DARE program, and there's this propaganda that comes, and once you experience it, right, as someone who's already addicted to something like opiates, you go, they lied. It isn't all that they made it out to be. Well, they weren't lying. They gave you the conclusion up front, and you don't see the conclusion when you first get into it. So you're like, they're lying. And then, yeah, they're not lying, actually. Down the road, you realize that. But anyway, I don't know if I answered that question, but I am just an open book, bro. I am just this kind of guy. It's who I am.
Well, I there's a couple of things I'd like to unpack in that. First of all, that you had said that it was healing, and I think most, certainly 12-step recovery programs, which I have some, my feeling on AA is reasonably simple. I do think it has religious overtones. I think the people who deny that are telling white lies. I think they know it has it, but they figure it's worth it, so they kind of deny it, or they say, okay, and I think AA is terrible. I think it has a really low success rate. I also think it's better than every other solution we have. We've never found anything that seems to work much better than at least some part of that process, which involves talking with other people who've gone through it. It involves being honest, and sort of even being compulsively honest, because and people often ask, and I'd like to get into this, is how do you know you have a problem? At what point do you say, okay, I have a problem? How do you identify that? But one thing in it is, if you've been lying a lot, especially trying to hide whatever it is you're using, that's a very good sign that something is really wrong. So honesty becomes this other thing. So you mentioned at least that honesty was healing, and I'm curious too if so it sounds, all this aside, anybody who's on YouTube, and I've had friends on YouTube say, I don't care about the subs. Listen, this is an educational program, so I want to be educational, but I could be educational in my closet. I'm turning on a camera, people are watching, I care about the subs. So, you want people to know, but it seems like you are very out there already, you're very honest already. Was there healing to this, as it sounded like you had suggested that it was healing? And was there any sense of maybe you're helping other people, and being of service was of help?
Absolutely. All the above. And so I've even said this before. You mentioned 12-step, right? I don't believe ontologically any of their higher power stuff in any metaphysical sense. I do think it works psychologically a lot of times, because they're already tapping into a culture that already believes in these types of things. They're trying to get rid of the overtones of the heaven and hell ideas. They're trying to get rid of the morality aspects to the religion by saying, look, you're sick. You're not. And I believe in that. I believe that people are sick. We do bad things, not because we're bad people. We're actually sick. This is something I like to put that philosophy out there for people, because that, I always thought I'm a horrible person. I mean, my worldview coming from evangelical Christianity is, I am dung, my righteousness is filthy rags, I am worthless, and God is everything. Horrible, horrible ideology, but nonetheless, this is what I believed, right? It was like, I'm nothing, and God is everything. I need God to do everything. And the 12-step program, I think, works so well because we evolved. We evolved as a community of other Homo sapiens together. We need each other. And that just basic common sense principle of uniting together and having something in common, which is why religion's been so successful for people throughout history, is the whole principle. That's what I think is what's powerful. I just did a post before we came on here talking about, you need a community of people who want you to meet your goals, which is a good outlook. And ultimately, I knew, getting back to the whole honesty thing, when I knew I had a problem, I would deny. I was so blind. I didn't know I had a problem. I went finally, let me put it like this. I knew, but I didn't know. It's hard for me to put this into words, but I didn't internalize this. I was doing it to get my wife off my back. I was doing it for my mom. I'm annoying them with the lifestyle I'm living. So I checked myself into a detox one day, and I was reading a pamphlet. They had these little trifold pamphlets, and it was like, read this to know if you're a drug addict, right? And I'm in a detox center still wondering, not knowing. Yeah. So I'm reading this pamphlet, and it said, have you stolen to get drugs? Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm rating myself. Yeah. Have you lied? Yeah, I've lied. Okay. Have you done this or that? Yeah. No, I didn't do that. You feel good.
I'm not rock bottom yet. I didn't. I wasn't exchanging blowjobs for. So I'm not quite there yet. But I haven't.
I haven't sold ass yet. Okay. Yeah. I'm not there yet. Okay. So I'm checking no and yeses, and at the end they get you and you flip it, and it's like, well, if you've checked more than this many boxes, and I'm like, oh, you're most likely a drug addict. And this is what the doctor was trying to tell me. The doctor was trying to tell me, okay, so you went from swallowing them. How long ago were you swallowing the pills? Okay, now you're snorting them. How long ago was that? Oh, 4 years. 4 years. And his eyes would lift. Oh, he's taking notes, and I'm going, what the hell does that mean? And then he's like, have you injected yet? No, I would never do that. At the time, I had never done that. Now, eventually, yes. It became the only...
The indignation, though, right? The like, no, that's a drug user. The injections, I would never go that far. And then once you do it, well, I did. It was such a small step. But the real one is the one who's either selling their bodies or selling their friends' stuff, breaking. That's the drug user. I'm just injecting, you know, it's always
I'm just putting a McDonald's straw up my nose. Get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm not the drug addict that guy is. And you do that to justify where you're at. But I never said I would ever do drugs to begin with. If I look back 10 years ago, I forgot that I told myself I would never do drugs. Then it was like, well, I would never do drugs, those drugs, or like that. And then you literally do the very things you didn't know you were going to end up doing by saying I wasn't going to do them. All that being said, I realized... I looked at this little etching on the wooden desk inside the room I was at the detox center while withdrawing Opanas, oxymorphone. This is before heroin and fentanyl at that time in my life. And there's this guy who was like, I don't know, he had some like street name, like Little Uzi or something, you know? And he's like, I left this place a changed man, and he etched a date. I saw him or someone etched, and they said Little Uzi below. And he said, I feel like I'm crazy or something like that. I'm insane. It never ends. It's the same. And like, then put another date 2-3 years later, like he's back in the same building, and it scared the absolute, you know what, out of me. And I thought to myself, well, hold on. And everyone keeps telling me, you're going to keep doing this. This is going to keep happening. And I'm like, I'm going to make sure I put a stop to this. The doctor, I went to check myself out. I had other stuff going on. My wife is going to work at this place in Raleigh with some guy who helped get me into this place. And I'm thinking, this guy's trying to play me to get close to my wife. I got a Barbie doll for a wife. And I'm starting to wake up. I'm 3 days off Opanas. I'm starting to wake up, and I'm like, whoa. This is reality. I was in a dream. What the heck? Because it's like a dream. So I go to check myself out. The doctor stops me at the door and says, Derek, listen, I'm telling you, I'm diagnosing you. You are a drug addict. And I hate to say this, no matter what you say, do you know how many thousands of people I see come back to this place after leaving here? And I told him, I said, doctor, I'm not ever coming back here again. Mark my words. I left and I relapsed 27 days later. But my pride would not let me go back to a detox center, so I withdrawed at home for a couple weeks until my sister told me, Derek, why don't you go back? Just go back. Now, she was meth addict. There's so much stuff that goes in the family and everything.
Yeah.
I went back. I started going to meetings again. And I got clean for 2 years. I'd go to meetings for like 2-3 months, like really hard. And then I like lay off and I started doing good. I was 2 years clean going to a Presbyterian church and started taking communion as a member. And man, that wine in the Presbyterian church and that warm, fuzzy going down my esophagus, you know, I always would tell the meetings when I'd go back after I'd get sober again, and I'd say, look, I relapsed in the Holy of Holies, guys. And they're laughing at me, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I wanted to drink wine. Our Lord, I would say as a Christian at the time, drank wine. I can drink wine, and I justify it. Then I'm blacking out, forgetting everything I was doing, and one night I actually hurt my wife. Physically, really bad. And I woke up the next day going to hug her with a migraine from hell because I was really blacked out. I loved clear liquor, whatever kind I can get. I really enjoyed it. And I woke up the next day and she said, don't touch me. And I was like, what's wrong, babe? And she says, you beat me up in front of your children last night. And when she told me that, I felt like I wanted to die. I felt like death. I wanted to die. So my sister had messaged me and she said, it's time. It's time. Now for me, that meant meetings. That meant you got to do something about this. And I felt like I would do anything at the moment. So I went back to meetings. I got sober, and I've only had one beer since like 7 years ago. It was over 6 because 6 years. The 25th of October was the last time I recall using heroin. It wasn't the 27th because I was saying that in early days, but very confusing, the timing in which I actually got clean and sober.
It happens, yeah.
It's difficult. But the 25th is when I remember. And I haven't had a beer, but on the 4th of July while I was on heroin, and it tasted like piss. I didn't like it. I didn't like mixing drugs. So I was on heroin. But October the 25th of 2000 and what year was it? 15? 2015 was when my last shot of heroin was that year. So I'm just rabbit trailing here, giving you some context.
No, and thank you for that. I'm immensely sorry you went through that. That's hard to even to hear. I can't even imagine going through it. Well, and I mean, a doctor of mine once told me that there's actually only one problem with drugs and alcohol. There's only one problem with alcohol. There's only one problem with cocaine. There's only one problem with heroin. It's that it works. Mm-hmm. It works. If it didn't work, you wouldn't take it. If it didn't achieve the goals you were looking for, you wouldn't take it. And the problem is they cause you to do ultimately, and like you had said, you start and you're just like, oh, this is, and one of the traps that people start to fall into is they take it once and they're like, oh wow, I took it once, I'm not addicted, so obviously it's all this stuff was lies, and so I can take it again because it's clearly safe. And you end up going down, and then eventually you need it so badly that it's like if you don't get it, you really do feel like you're going to die. And I think most of us would be willing to do just about anything to not die. We don't know what that kind of fight or flight response is like, but when you kind of almost get trapped in it when you're not taking the stuff anymore, yeah, you're willing to do anything, and so now you're stuck because the only thing that's going to work, the only thing that's going to stop this is taking more of it. So, and now you had told me a story that I thought dovetailed with that nicely about the guy who had robbed his own place. You had said that. Yeah. So I was wondering if you could.
You want me to tell you?
Again, please.
I'll give you a little more context. So, right. And this is this guy is me. This guy is actually me, and my thing is I was a thief. I would steal anything I could to get money toward the end because I couldn't keep jobs. I was stealing at works that I worked at, and I can't go into some of the detail because, I mean, I'm no longer working at those places. But nonetheless, I did a lot of bad things. In fact, I ended up becoming a felon at the end for stealing, and that was just, you do anything to get the drug, to get the alcohol, to try to escape and to keep doing that. Well, my wife and she was trying to control me the best she could at the end when I was on heroin. I was on heroin for at least a year straight, pretty hard. And someone that knew us called the Department of Social Services. So they're investigating my household, and they're being told I am on heroin and I have 3 kids in the house. So my wife and I are now being investigated, and they're thinking they're going to have to take my kids. And my wife said, let me tell you something. If it's you or the kids, you're out. And you need to go. That's the best thing you can do as a father and husband right now. If I can't stop you, you need to go. So now I'm homeless, and I'm literally going couch to couch. I found another couple people. There were a couple that were doing drugs with me. We were every day trying to find a way to make money to get our fix. And one day I had a bright idea. Ryan goes to work. My wife is Ryan. And she leaves. Me and my 2 drug addict friends who are a couple, we go over. I kick my own door in. I literally had to break in because I had no key. Broke my own front door of the house that I own, right? Take the TV that I bought my children the Christmas before off of their wall to drive down to the local pawn shop to pawn it to get $70, to go get a fix so we could all get high, to go knock on someone's door to door in the neighborhood to ask if we can cut their grass or we could do some tree work, manual labor, made the money just so I could go get the TV back out of the pawn shop to go put it back up on the wall in my kid's room for my wife to come home and go, someone broke in, you need to get over here. And I drive over there and like, what? Who broke in? Acting like nothing happened. And she goes, yeah, but nothing's missing. It makes no sense. And when I finally got clean, said, I'm the one who broke into our own house. That's why nothing was missing. And having to explain that was normal, actually, for me. I would hunt sheds in people's backyards to see if they had a weed eater or backpack blower or some type of equipment that I could sell to another man who owns a business that would give me cash money to try and do it. Like, and the creativity was there. Next step would have been horrible ideas, but anything to get the drugs. And I remember one story, I didn't even share this with you, but at the end, I'm living on my brother's couch because I got kicked out of the house I was at. And I took a piece of a Suboxone. For anyone who knows what that is, that blocks the receptors in the brain to help people to get off heroin or other hard drugs. And so I'm taking it thinking this will help me from having withdrawals and to get me out of withdrawal. And I'm withdrawing that morning. But I also called the dope man saying, look, can you front me a 20? I'll find a way to get 20 today. And so he's like, no. And I keep bugging him, please, I will do anything to find a 20 just to get a fix. And he says, all right, finally, a couple hours later, come through. Well, I had already taken a piece of the Suboxone, so I knew it wasn't going to work the same way. It blocks a lot of the receptors, so I'm not even going to get as high as I wanted to. So I go over to his house. I get the 20. Me and my brother both get a front. He doesn't have money either, so we're going to have to find a way to be able to pay the dope dealer back. And I'm putting it in this spoon, and I'm in the back seat of the car with my brother. And I'm going to try and do it. My hands are so fidgety that I spill half the spoon. And I'm so desperate, I just start crying. Literally start crying. It spilled into my sweatpants, and now I'm like just trying to suck the heroin out of my sweatpants. And I finally do the little bit of shot I could, and I'm injecting it at this time. And I remember looking down at the spoon, and I saw a reflection, like briefly, of my face in the spoon. And I just started crying. Like literally. I just started crying. And I looked over at my brother, and he started crying too. And I just said, how the fuck did we get here? How did I get here, bro? We don't even know because we were athletes. Bro, I ran triathlons and came in first place. I was like a star athlete. My father's a retired Green Beret in the Special Forces. I mean, he is a retired Master Sergeant. This guy was a leader he commanded entire groups. He was group leaders in 7th Group, Special Forces. This guy's a hero. He taught me these things. Like, I was a badass my whole life. Jiu-jitsu, wrestling, all the things. Star athlete when it came to soccer, football, baseball, everything you can imagine. I was just that kind of guy. How did I get to the point where I'm sticking needles in my arm in the backseat of a car, owing a guy $20 I don't even have, not even having a place to lay my head, and I'm begging, trying to find a way? And I asked myself, how did I get here? And I felt in my mind that there was a wall. There was a wall that I was going to meet soon. And I needed to meet that wall, that I believed somewhere inside of me that I could do it. But I hadn't quite got to it. Was right there at the end, and I knew I needed to do something. And finally one day, my mom, I made this story up. This is where it gets real ugly before the good happens. I'm back at the other people's couch, the couples, and they wake up one morning and they have a mission, but they're not telling me anything about it because they don't want to share the drugs with me. And I'm desperate, and I'm calling my mom, and I said, Mom, the dope dealer fronted me $140 of heroin, and he's going to drive by and shoot my house up with my family in it if I don't pay him back. He has my ID. He knows my address. I gave him that as part of the front. My mom does not believe anything I am saying. She knows that I'm a liar. She knows I'm full of shit. She doesn't believe me. Then I persist and act like this is so serious, and I blame her in a way. I'm putting it's everyone else's fault, duh. I'm an addict. It's always everyone else's fault. It is never our fault. We're the most selfish. But when we are clean and we're doing good, we're some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. We'll bend over backward. We'll do unbelievable things to help other people, which gets eventually to the story of helping the Muslim guy that was in New York I'll tell you about. But there's so many people, though, that have helped. This is just one example. But I tell her that, and finally she goes, you know what? Fine. If I give you this $140 to go pay this dope dealer back, then you have to go to this lady named Elisa's house and withdraw. She's in recovery. And I said, all right, anything to get that. I'll do anything. And in my mind, though, I'm like, there's two wolves fighting. And I use that as an analogy. Like, you can go and just get them off your back and go and withdraw. But do you really want to do that? And I had my phone with me that had all my dope dealer numbers and everything. I go get this fix and I commit. And I say, all right, you know what? I'm going to go to her house. I've got all this heroin that I'm just now doing. I'm fine. I've got a little bit to do later when I'm in the bedroom at her house to withdraw from. I'm good. I go to her house, and my wife, I'm like trying to get medicine out of her. I'm trying to find ways to have her come visit me, to bring stuff to me. Well, I end up running into a situation where I don't have anything. I have this Suboxone, though, but I'm withdrawing. I'm skipping some time here to get to the point. And so I ended up taking half of the Suboxone. It put me into precipitated withdrawals. For those who don't know what that is, it is practically all of your withdrawals over the past next 3 days or whatever, hitting you at once. It's not gradual. Everything hit me. It compounded. And I am crawling into the bathtub. I took probably 12 baths that night because I'm freezing and then I'm hot and I'm sweaty and I'm freezing and I'm hot. I felt like little spiders are crawling through my legs. I felt like little knives, little needles were stabbing me all over my body. The worst imaginable, undescribable pain. That's what I was experiencing that whole night. Finally, I woke up. And then I ended up going through the same thing the next night. And it came in waves. And it started getting better every day I got further off of it. That's when I saw the guy on my couch. And I'm at my house, finally left her house. I'm 5 days off. I'm desperate. Half the time my mind is telling me, just get high. You'll feel better. Just get high. Because it's my brain. But the other side of me saying, keep going. Don't give up. And I made that video. That video went viral. Almost 1 million views right now. The other video I did 2 days after that has 1,300,000 views on the other channel. Went viral. There's people in Afghanistan who've wrote me and said, Derek, what do I do when heroin is cheaper than food and I'm addicted to heroin? And I'm like, I honestly don't know how to help you. If you can't relocate and find a way somewhere where you're not near it and you can't get it, I don't know how to help you on that. I knew that I needed to be separated from the people, the places, and the things. So there are truths that you can find in these programs, even if they're faith-based programs. But anyway, there's so many things I can't even begin in this little bit of time that we could discuss on what happened. But I can tell you this, you're not the same person when that drug is absolutely controlling what you think.
Well, and so I want to make a couple of, just because there's some comments in the live chat, excuse me. So Sinister Porpoise had said, thank you for telling your story, and I cannot agree enough. And I think, I've met the spectrum of people, very honest people, very extroverted people, very introverted people who nonetheless are verbal processors. So they just have to talk because that's how they comprehend their own. So everything on the spectrum, right? So it sounds to me that you in general are very open. So it may be hard for you to understand, but I would like to. I am genuinely very thankful that you were willing to come here and share this, because in my view, I've seen your show. We have a link to it in the description, and it strikes me as a very successful show. But even if you didn't have a pretty good numbers and growth, you do good shows and you interview people. You do it well. You're clearly present, engaged, and on top of things. And I think it's very important to show successful people and people who are leading productive lives, and say this is what they had to go through, because otherwise there's no hope on the other side. And I think it's also, I'm very pleased to hear you say as well that, like, okay, I don't know. You're not trying to project the answers, and you seem to be very honest with the limitations of these experiences. But I think talking about these stories is its own kind of medicine. It's not the solution, but it's a start for people. So thank you. I think I've already thanked you once or twice for coming, but thank you again. And Sinister Porpoise had said that, and I wanted to reflect that. And we also had Maudi, who a very good friend of the show, and said vulnerability is strength, and that's something that he talks about a lot. And I think that is very difficult for people to understand, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. And that is, in fact, one of the parts of the 12 steps is acknowledging your own vulnerability and surrendering. There you get to the higher power and all that and so on. And,
yeah. I always tell, when they talk about the God thing, I have gone when I went to go get my 5-year chip, just because I'm celebrating the fact that I got clean initially in those rooms. So I show up and they're all like, God this and God that. I'm like, God is a great acronym, a group of drunks, or good orderly direction, right? You hear these slogans, because I'm no longer a theist, but I still believe in the power of people. I think that that's where the real magic happens, is the people. This is why in those steps that they talk about higher power, they want you to go talk to another human being. And I think this is why confession is an ancient ritual humans have practiced, because we've realized the psychology of telling another human being these things and how that's worked. So, you could talk about, I'm confessing to God, but really you're telling another human. And it's really the point. But anyway, I digress.
Well, I don't think you digress that much. Again, cornerstones to the 12-step program is being of service. And I think it's interesting the way that's put. I think that's probably the best way to put it, but a lot of people sort of think of it as servitude, and that may not necessarily be bad, because humility, we do need humility. But what we need, human beings, we are social creatures, and we need to be useful in some way or another. We need people to say, oh, you know what, I need to get this thing done, and you know who could help me? Derek could help me, or Nick could help me, or these, and then realize that you are needed and productive in that society. And I think the death of that facilitates wanting to use drugs, because it's a great escape. It leads to depression, and the fostering of that is a cornerstone in healing. At least in my view, which is, again, why I appreciate you coming on. So I have a couple questions, and what I'm going to do is hit you with a couple of them, and you can pick and choose. I've noticed when I do that, you like to go in order, so maybe I should figure out which one I want and just put it first. But
just do me one at a time. We'll chip away at them.
Oh, okay. Well, so then let's start with. Oh dear! Now I just forgot like 2 of them. So I guess what we'll do is the one I remember. I'm trying to write them down. But what do you think? Obviously, you probably wouldn't be able to recover without any number of things that along the way and support that you've got. But if you had to put your own recovery, say that there was just one thing that you think was paramount in success in it, what would you say that was?
The support from the closest people to me. My wife, my mother, my children, they showed up. I didn't have Christmas presents. I mean, it was a few months before Christmas. I had no job, I had no money. And I went into a meeting one day and started crying, and this old man, the little people, the people that really just spoke something, and I was listening. I was actually listening, because when we're in that state while abusing these drugs or alcohol, we're not paying attention. We're only in it for ourselves. But he's like, you gave them the greatest gift you could, and that's you being present. So they came, with me and supported me along the way. And I think if I'd have had that antagonism out the gate, I even told my wife one time, I'm not sure I'm going to live. This might kill me. I need support. I'm going to have it, because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live my life. I was very honest. Like, I'm a newborn child. I don't know anything. I have no clue what I'm doing. It's obvious I have no clue what I'm doing. Look at how I'm living my life. And I started with, I don't know. So the combination of the people and the philosophy of stop acting like you know what the hell you're talking about. I used to tell everyone how Jesus is Lord and all of these like affirmative, I had the truth and this and this and that. And it's like, where's that truth at now? Like, you don't know a damn thing. And that's where it gets into the philosophy. I think, wasn't it Socrates or Aristotle? I don't know anything. I know enough to know I don't know. I realized I don't know. And I started from scratch, just being a clean slate. That was what really helped me. But yeah, most importantly, the humans that were there encouraged me to go to do something to, get help. So.
We often refer to drugs as self-medicating. And if that really is the case, what were you medicating from, do you think?
It's a great question. Drugs or self-medicating? For me, I think there's probably a trauma, some way, shape, or form. Something's probably there that is hurting or that is causing, and sometimes it's just natural chemical imbalances. Maybe people are suffering from mental health. I'm not really sure. With me, I was raised in a house, though it was high speed, though it was top notch, and I was always athletic. My parents were there for me to do sports. My dad was an alcoholic, and there was a lot of verbal abuse. Very rarely were there physical, but it would get that way to the point where the verbal was almost like it was physical. So we would have to leave our house, and I never felt in my skin. I never felt comfortable. Like I don't know how to describe that other than that. And eventually I came to realize when I did everything I did do to my own family, I never wanted to be like my dad, even though he was somewhat my hero. There was this like side of me that kind of had this bitterness toward him. And down the road, I kind of went through this healing process of realizing, like, who are you? Look, you did the same things. You've got to forgive yourself and forgive him. Because you realize, did you really mean to do all those horrible things to your own family, Derek? No, you didn't, did you? Then why'd you do them? And you can realize when you've been there why you did them in the moment, but you wish you didn't do them. And that's exactly what my dad felt. Because I remember him begging my mom and saying, I'm so sorry. I did not. I want to stop. I want to stop. And he meant it. Tears in his eyes. He meant it. And he would grab a hold of it for a while and then boom, relapse. And I know, I don't care who it is on planet Earth that says otherwise. They're wrong. I know for a fact that he meant well. He wanted good, but he struggled. And I learned those things from him and that trauma. So I learned to escape with the drugs or alcohol. It made me feel taller. It made me feel stronger. It made me feel less insecure. It gave me all the perks and I don't know how to describe. It gave me what I felt was completion. And being someone who was a believer, who experienced things in the church, which I attribute them to the chemicals in our brain and the social environment that is reacting to those chemicals, it gave me what I used to call the Holy Spirit inside, that warm sensation of completion and comfort, the comforter. I had that experience with drugs times 10. So now when Christians try to talk about subjective experiences, you're playing with somebody who really found God then. I really met God. It's like, I'm being funny, but I'm not. I know what it's like to experience these things.
What happened to your dad?
He's sober now. I've since being clean, this is a little personal life here, but it is what it is. Because I usually like to talk about my own. I'm not ashamed of my own, but since I've been clean, I've helped my father and my brother get into rehabs and get sober and clean. And I've been an instrument in this life, like in the family life, that people have realized, like, I'm glad Derek made it. That's helped me. I've helped my brother and my dad.
Well, good. And I asked that question. I try to follow a son of a lawyer here, and there's an old saying which is absolutely true: never ask a question to which you don't already know the answer. And I'm sitting there going, I had a suspicion at an answer, and I'm very glad I was wrong. But I was just like, okay, I'm about to ask. Like, we're going to see where this goes. But I'm glad to hear it. So, all right, let me just.
I'm mostly an optimist too. So, naturally, I am an optimist. Mm-hmm. And my hopes were that they would be successful, and I just kept going for that. And eventually, it does happen. The family members around the drug addicts are a huge key. So you can't always save everybody, but there are ways to try your best. That's all you can do is try your best.
So where are you now? How often does like a sudden urge come up, or do you sit there and suddenly remember, what it was, and maybe a part of your brain says, "Ooh, you start thinking about it again." And how secure do you feel in your sobriety, and what are the keys to it, and or the things that maybe you think undermine it?
So the last time I thought about like a drug to use at all was 5 years ago. And the only time I ever have that happen is in a dream. I never do it consciously, awake. It's always a dream that I have, and it's very rare that I have those dreams anymore. So I don't think about it. It doesn't cross my mind, and I go, it doesn't even. I've gotten to a place where I built walls. I'm using an analogy here to kind of a metaphor, if you will, to get people where I'm at. I built walls between me and the lifestyle I used to live by people that I used to hang out with, the places I used to go, and the things I used to do that were active addiction, things that I would do that would make me find ways to get the drugs or the alcohol or whatever. So I'll give you an example. I'm a grown man. I'm 33 now, family life. I don't go to bars all the time. It might be something once in a blue, very, very rare. Once a year, maybe. I might take my wife somewhere where there might be her friends there and we want to socialize. I don't go to the bar every day. When I was in early recovery, this go around, I remember I was telling on myself in a meeting, and I said, look, I have no job, but I know a guy who sells pills I used to be addicted to. Now it was heroin that I was on, so I saw the pills as they're not heroin, so they're no good. But I was flipping them. I was selling these pills to make $120, and I could do it in 30 minutes. And it would happen every other day. Someone would call trying to get these pills. I'd flip them and make $120 profit. I told on myself. And I said, look, I've been doing this. I really know it's not right, but I need the money, this and that. And this one guy was like, hey, my name's so-and-so. And he said, look, man, we're all monkeys. And you're selling bananas. You think you're going to eat one eventually? And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, selling these bananas because I'll probably take one day or something will happen. And so you gotta build walls, strong walls between the way you used to live and find a different outlet. And I'm glad I found interest in philosophy and getting into religious studies, not being a religious person. It's a hobby horse. And also I play video games every once in a while. So I find other things that separate me from being bored in my mind and then contemplating, they say boredom is the devil's playground or whatever. You kind of want to escape. I don't have to escape. I have other things I can do that help me to do that today.
Well, I think this was actually just the highlight of the show. My wife is going to sit there and say, how'd the show go? I'm going to say, oh, great. He told me about how he used to smoke bananas. Long story. I'm not going to...
There was a banana peel on my withdrawal. Day 5, I was putting out a cigarette on a banana peel.
Yeah. You had mentioned it. I was like, oh, dear Lord. There was actually, it's just very much aside. Somebody had posted this thing that's of witchcraft and various incantations you could do or whatever. And if you want a woman to like you, put mill in a shoe of hers. You got to steal a shoe, so you'll get her to like her. You steal a shoe, put mill in the shoe, and then hang it up over your bed. And in a week or whatever, she'll like you. But then one of them had said, to intrigue a woman, give her cheese. So I was like, okay. So I go to my fridge, get a little piece of cheese, went over to my wife, dropped it on her desk, and just walked away. It worked. She was intrigued. She was also annoyed. There was more than one. It didn't talk about other ancillary emotions that it actually triggered, but she was curious. All right. So she's going to ask about that banana peel. All right. So well, let's see. I want to try to limit it to maybe 2 more questions so we can start to wrap this up. But it's been spectacular. I definitely want to have you back on. Oh dear Lord. Okay. Yeah, busted. So at any rate, I'd like to start wrapping this up, and so I would like to have you back on either maybe to discuss this issue further, because I think there's a lot to mine, and certainly to discuss, because I think the content that you do really does dovetail with a lot of the content we like to do. So I'm hoping we will have you back. But you had talked about helping other people, and this can be difficult. because it seems to me that you want to help other people. It seems to me you wouldn't be on this show if you didn't want people to hear your story, which, as I had said before, I think is the first step in helping and in people understanding that they're not alone in this, even as alone as it feels. But also, you've got the problem that, you're not an expert, you're not a doctor. So what happens, where have been some situations where maybe you've tried to help, and, what happens when you feel like you want to help? How do you deal with that? And how do you avoid maybe also getting triggered and wanting to go back yourself?
Well, like I said, I don't 24/7 open my doors to someone to try and bring them in. What I do is, I've had a lot of people write me about my other channels saying that the content I create motivated them. It literally physically was so inspirational that they actually physically wanted to do something about their addiction. That is something that I'm really proud of, that it was all natural. I didn't start that channel going, I'm going to help people. I'm 5 days off heroin. I'm a guru on knowing how to get clean. I didn't know damn thing. I didn't know that it was going to turn into a channel that would help people. It was a journal. It literally was me on a couch crying out for help, going, I got to make it. I got to make it, but here's my life. Then day 7, I felt so inspired that I was like, look, you can do it. I tried all these natural remedies, Eventually, I'm writing 1,235 days off heroin. Literally are the titles of some of my videos. I'm that many days off heroin. And I'm just documenting it. So I'm so far away from using at the point where it started to become gradually difficult for me to want to continue making content on the channel. Plus, I have to go where the money's at and try to provide for my family. So it's very draining to deal with drug addicts. Very, very draining, even as one that I was. You could go, but don't you have all the patience in the world because you know exactly how they're thinking? That still doesn't change how difficult drug addicts are. I get them that message me all the time, and I tell them, go get medical professional help. Do not withdraw on your couch if you can get the help medically. Don't do it at home like I did. That doesn't matter. If you did it, I should be able to do it. It took every fiber in me to make it. And I'm I like to think physically and mentally that I'm a pretty, when I commit to something, I have a pretty strong mindset. So most people aren't extreme like me. I'm going to run this 5 miles, and then I run this 5 miles till I'm physically not capable or something. I that kind of mindset. Not everyone has that kind of mindset. So sitting at home and they're feeling like they're dying, they're going to want to call up the dope man. Well, I told you also to delete the dope man's number out of your phone and to find a way to separate yourself. Oh, well, the problem is you give the advice, the chemical imbalance takes place, they're now withdrawing. The last thing on earth they're going to do is actually listen to the things you just said. Yeah. So I tell them up front when I was doing this early on, go to a place you can't get the drugs. You can't contact someone to get the drugs. You have to, while you're high, I know this sounds crazy, set yourself up in a place that when you're not high and the chemicals are now leaving and you are dying in your mind, you have to be able to not get them even if you really wanted them. If it was life or death, you have to be somewhere where you can't. That's what I always tell them. Most of them don't do all that. They check off a few boxes and the rest of the boxes are still there and they relapse. Or I'll go to rehab, I'll tell them, or I'll go to detox, I'll go to a treatment center, and they don't do it. And so they do that 20 times, and they're going, man, I keep on messing up. And I go, did you take any of the advice that I told you? Did you do any of those things that I was telling you that I know worked for me? If not, I can't tell you what will work for you, but I'll tell you what worked for me, and this is what I did. Did you do that? Oh, no. Okay. So the frustration would set in, and I pretty much was telling people from then on out, at a certain point when I'd get contact from parents that their child died, their child is dead now. They overdosed, and he loved you, Derek. My best friend overdosed and died, and his name was Ashton Mott, and they used to do videos with him, and I visited him in California before he died. I met him in person. We hung out and everything. And I would always say, look, I'm not a guru. Go get medical help. That's what I highly recommend. I'm not a professional. But this mother reached out to me. She had no money. She didn't have money like that, nothing like that. Wanted to get her son help. And she said he looked up to me. And she had another son who overdosed and died. She actually had 2 sons die. One was stabbed to death many years ago in New York, trying to protect the brother who overdosed and died. And that was last year. So then her oldest son is addicted to fentanyl. And she was begging me for weeks. I kept feeling like she was my mom. I felt like, this is my mom calling me. So I finally told the wife, I'm going to New York. I'm going to go just pick this guy up and do something crazy as hell that I've never done. I drove to New York. I picked him up. He looked like hell. Brought him back to my house, had him living. I even kicked out family members that were staying in other rooms because everyone was tight together for COVID. Gave him a bedroom and was helping him. I'm not a doctor. Shouldn't have done this. I could have been liable if something went south, but had some medications that I knew would alleviate the symptoms. Now, my father is a medic in the Special Forces, so he taught me a little bit about medicine growing up, and I know a thing or two from experience. But I'd help him and alleviated those symptoms. 2 weeks in, he's off fentanyl. He's not withdrawn at all. He's smoking a little weed here and there. But I'm like, what's weed when you've done fentanyl? Trust me. If you're watching, You're like, no comparison. Well, he found a way to get an Uber, and he had some money through an unemployment card, I guess he had. And he was snuck off to the ABC store. It's called the ABC store here in North Carolina. It's the alcohol store. I guess that's because they're like, the only letters by the time you're drunk is A, B, C. But he goes.
You'll be able to find the store, though. That's good. Oh, that's good. Yeah, great.
Yeah. So he goes, gets it, comes back, and I walk in that morning, and there's a bottle on the ground, empty. He drank the whole thing. He's smirking, and he's drunk. And I was like, look, man, you can't do alcohol. I tried to pep talk him. He did it a couple more times. I was very, very lenient because I did not want to see him have to go back because I knew what would happen. And it did happen. Exactly what I thought was going to happen did happen. Got him about 3 weeks clean. And finally, when that happened, I said, that's it. You're out today, man. I already told you. You crossed the line. And I committed to it. We got him out. He stayed in a hotel. He finally makes his way back up home to New York and overdosed. Within 5 days, he had to have an ambulance come and resuscitate him from the stuff on the streets in New York. He had also pneumonia and ended up in a hospital for like 3 weeks for however bad his pneumonia, on top of the fact that he wasn't healthy doing the fentanyl, was. So there's this combination of crap going on with him. And I literally felt so bad I couldn't keep communicating with his mom because it was so bad. And she just, Derek, he was doing good with you, like as if I have the power. And I can only stretch myself so thin. I will never have people come back in my house. To do that, my kids and my wife are impacted by those things. So I've learned to set boundaries also along the way. And he was a Muslim. So I always tell people I'm an atheist, and I critique Christianity, Abrahamic faiths, especially Christianity, because I know that one the most, but Judaism and Islam, I'm very critical. And there's some Muslims talking about, you Islamophobe. Like, this is the rhetoric apologists in the Islamic world do to people who are like me. I'm a white male in America. I've got an American flag hanging on the front of my house. I believe in the Second Amendment, right? All these things. And they call me an Islamophobe. I'm like, dude, last month, or it was really like 5 months ago now, I'm like, I just had a Muslim in my house that I went out of my way to try and help him. I didn't care. The one thing I did say is, my wife's making pork tonight. He's like, oh, and he's like, I'm so hungry, bring me some anyway. And I'm like, oh, my man. I'm like, yeah. But, just, it is what it is. Yeah.
You're going to land on the no true Muslim on that one. I'm sure people are going to sit there and say, oh, you knew he wasn't a Muslim because he was eating pork. Okay.
He wasn't really a practicing religious one. Look at his lifestyle, right? His mom and dad even told me this on the phone, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, I didn't go out there going, is he a true Muslim? If he is, I'm not going to help him. No, I helped him no matter what because I care. But I've realized my wife and my kids, we talked about this, and I was like, I crossed some lines in terms of boundaries I shouldn't have crossed, but the mom really made me think he's going to die. And he really might. That's how bad his life is. I can't sacrifice my own family at the stake of that.
And what would you do for your own kids? I think that's the biggest problem with this, which is it kind of turns you into this inhuman. What would you do for yourself if you felt you were dying? Well, you'd kick down the door to your own house and steal something. What would you do for your kids if you felt they were dying? Well, you'd call up the only guy who maybe has an outside shot of at least helping and beg him at whatever cost. And unfortunately, even if it sounds pretty toxic all around. And the mom wasn't trying to be toxic, of course. She was trying to do something very good, which was save her son's life. But she'll be toxic if that's what it takes to do it. And sounds like at least you're trying to protect yourself some. So, well, Derek, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really a pleasure having you, and we've had a lot of positive comments on the live chat, so I hope we will be able to get you back again soon for something. I can think already of half a dozen shows, but for those of you who are with us, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really does help us out in the algorithm, and it helps us do content like this. Tonight we will have Nate Brody to discuss at 9 p.m. He's going to be discussing with us both the legality of a nationwide mask mandate, whether the president can actually issue it for employees and or for every American if he so chooses, and what the precedents are for that. Also, upcoming decisions in the Supreme Court, including the challenge to Roe v. Wade. Tomorrow, we will have our 10 p.m. After Dark. Anyone who wants to come in and join, it's an open hang. I'll send Derek off a link and see if I can bamboozle him into showing up. But we always get, we get a nice wide range of guests, so I hope you guys will join us for that. And we will also be covering at some point tomorrow, we haven't figured out when, we're trying to get everybody organized for that, the consequences of China's new rocket, which is so fast, basically we can't shoot it down, and it defeats our nuclear deterrent. So we will get into that as well tomorrow. But until then, Derek, once again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you all in the live chat for being here. If you like this, please subscribe and share the link with other people that you think would enjoy the content. And I look forward, Derek, to seeing you in the live chat of your show in the future, because I really do enjoy watching. And so thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. And till tonight, folks.